The top 3 players with season points are going to go to our championship. That's a $30,000 PTQ that we're going to be having at the store. It's going to be very exciting.
Right, it potentially could be one of these players as they are off to the races. So my next question is, who are we seeing and what decks are they playing?
Yeah, so we have Matthew Weiss here on the left playing Esper Midrange. Pretty traditional deck you've seen. Probably a lot of you been playing Standard. And then we have Fanchen Yang on the right here playing Dimir Ramp, which is basically kind of a combo deck. It's playing cards like Likeness Looter to make a copy of the card everyone knows, Conspiracy Unraveler, which is a new card from Murders of Markov Manor. Basically, the long story short is this lets you cast a spell by collecting evidence. Instead, we're going to use Breach the Multiverse and kind of mill our opponent out and put a bunch of things into play is the combo here. As we do see some reading here from Matthew.
What? This is like an advantage, right? You turn up to a tournament with a loaded bunch of new cards, and you're always going to have readers, and I very much encourage everybody to always read your opponent's cards. It's not up to them to let you make sure you know what they do. But just having a deck that your opponent doesn't know how it functions is such an advantage in this modern era of Magic that we've got, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think, play off heuristics a lot, which, makes some amount of sense, especially these big turns. You need to be able to kind of like know what you're supposed to do, but being able to actually kind of think through and know what's going on in their deck matters a lot. And we see that happen, with a lot of our games. But if your opponent doesn't really understand what's going on, they don't have the heuristics and they're having to think through new problems on the fly. So just even having a baseline understanding of what's going on can be so massive with these decks.
Like I've got access to the deck list, and I've barely got an idea of what's going on in this deck. But we're going to be finding out together, chat, as we move forward here. Because remember, this is round number 6. 8 rounds of action today before that cut to top 8, where we're going to see who's going to be taking this down, who's going to be getting a bunch of money, a bunch of points, but their likeness made on a token. As here comes a little bit of chip damage coming across. Here comes a Faerie Mastermind coming down. First one we've seen on coverage so far today. Love this card.
Yeah, that card's really good. And a big sign for Yang that Matthew has a counterspell. We activated our eluding effect on the last turn and we didn't flash in the Mastermind to get the card. That probably means that we're a little worried about something happening. And we wanted to have the mana up instead.
I think that's the Takanara end of turn. We're going to mill free and we're going to return I think that's the alternate art Rona, right?
That is the alternate art Rona, yep.
I've still got it. It just. It's been a long day, Mason. You know about this. The morning shift can drag.
It really can, but not here in the later part of the day. As, Yang's trying to set up Reenact the Crime on a turn, which is going to be pretty tough with Matthew having cards like No More Lies in hand, or at least signaling No More Lies. So I'm curious to see sort of how it goes.
So Reenact the Crime, maybe we can get that on the screen for everybody at home. It's not exactly a staple currently that people would understand what's going on, but it is for 3 blue mana and 1 color. It's an instant. Exile target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn. Copy it and you may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. So yeah, and basically another way of cheating out like the multiverse, or I think that's the main one that would be cheating out, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a bunch of different things you could do with this. Like, we also have a Tali in our deck. And the Conspiracy Unraveler is one we can do where you may collect Evidence 10 rather than pay the mana cost to cast. So, like, that allows us to get this into play, and then we cast a bunch of other spells, and we can kind of, combo off from that point.
Here comes a Deep-Cavern Bat that's going to take out a redundant copy of Arona in hand. Leave Yang with, I think it was just an Otawara left in hand.
Sounds right to me.
I think it's the extended alternate art. There's a lot of different arts going on currently in Magic, especially in these decks. I'm all for it, by the way. I love alternate art. I love it when my cards look amazing. They basically perform better. I think that's the rule. The better the card art, the better the card performs.
Yeah, I think that is the rule. I think I saw some tweets about that from Frank Carson running the numbers. So,
okay, we're over on Matthew's side. We've got a loot going on here. Deciding, was it a loot or was it attack? Maybe it's just attack.
No, it was a second loot.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not going losing my marbles.
No, you're all good. It was a unique place. As you know, we got to get more looting happening here.
So Otawara. Bounce the Deep-Cavern Bats back to hand. And then we're going to cast this, which by this, of course, I mean the Likeness Looter. And then back on the other side, we've got any replies to that? Nope. We're just going to be, like I said, there it is on the screen for you all. Because, of course, I know everybody knows what this does. It's a staple, but it does have a lot of text on it. 1 black, 1 blue for 1/1 flying fairy shapeshifter. Has tap, draw a card, then discard a card, then X. Lightning Looter becomes a copy of target creature card in your graveyard with mana value X. Except it has flying, and this ability can only be activated at a sorcery speed.
Yeah, this is a great way to sort of, have extra copies of our things like Conspiracy Unraveler we talked about earlier, and things like, Atali. We don't get the ETB on Atali, but still, turning your Likeness Looter into a huge creature in the late game can be a very easy way to win the game.
Yeah, there was a little bit of shortcut just to clear that up, chat. So basically, the bat bounced it back to hand, but we cast it straight away. So that's why you saw it go into the battlefield. It didn't really get put behind the lands and then back in front. We did a little bit of short cut in there, but you can work that out with the 4 mana that was used. 2, because the OOR was reduced by 2 from the 2 legendaries on the battlefield, and then 2 mana to actually hard cast it and put it on the battlefield. And here is a nice follow-up. By the way, this card has impressed me every time I've read it, seen it played. The Preacher it's just for 3 mana. There's so much text on this, and it's a 2/4, so it's an absolute house. Really, really cool card.
Yeah, Preacher the Schism is a great card for stabilizing you when you're behind, and then when you're ahead on life, you just sort of start running downhill in a lot of spots. And also just 2/4 Death Touch has been statted really well with everything going on, dodging things like Cut Down. This was like a 1/4. You would think most of the time it would play out the same, right? But the fact that it dies to Cut Down if you did that means it plays out really differently.
Yeah, one of the premium removals cards of this format. This is going to see this flashback. Is this the one I thought? This is the Terror Tide. Not a card we traditionally see in Standard, especially not this weekend. It might end up being a staple, but it is 2 colors, 2 black, with all creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Now, that's in the main deck. That's really cool. That's like a big hedge towards all the aggro decks that are floating around, and potentially the Boris Convoke deck that we've been seeing put up really good numbers in Standard recently.
Yeah, it's probably a really nice situation for Yang where you want to play this card for things like Boris Convoke, and then it turns out against a lot of Esper Midrange, and other decks like this, like Dimir Midrange, which we saw Will Kruger playing earlier today in our tournament and being undefeated so far. It's good against those decks as well. Deep-Cavern Bat's a pretty annoying card. You want to kill the Gix, you want to kill the Preacher before they get going. So it's kind of a nice inclusion.
Oof, this is going to be a blast. I think we've got a counter spell here to be able to get that in the graveyard. That was the Conspiracy Unraveler, right? That in itself is a 7 mana 6/6, but does have extra text on it. You may collect evidence 10 rather than paying the mana cost for spells that you cast. Now, I'm seeing a lot of cards that do a lot of things, but in conjunction, what's the powerful effects that this deck can do?
So you're going to do something like Conspiracy Unraveler, and then you cast Breach the Multiverse or some big spell like that for collecting evidence rather than actually paying the mana. And then your Breach will sort of continuously self-fuel, and you'll get your spells back from the graveyard, and you'll kind of keep going, and you'll put a bunch of power on the board, or just, cheat out something like an Atraxa into play, right? So the deck is trying to sort of we call it Dimir Ramp because it is trying to, cheat out big things early and using things like Rona and Likeness Looter, etc., to enable cards like Reenacted Crime to sort of ramp it out there. But honestly, I think you could argue this is like standard Reanimator in a lot of ways as well.
Well, unfortunately, Matthew is going to take down just applying enough pressure while enough counter magic. Yang, I believe, drew a Atraxa for the turn, missing that vital green mana to be able to hard cast it, though, because that would have been a pretty sweet top deck if it wasn't. But the good thing for everybody at home, this is a closed deck list tournament, but not for us. We've got the deck list. Let's get them on the screen and have a little talk through it. So starting off on Yang's side, what do you like bringing in here, Mason?
Yeah, so I imagine Cut Down's going to be pretty important. We saw how powerful Deep-Cavern Bat has been in this match and in a lot of our matches today. Cards like Raffine are also going to be on our mind, so I love Cut Down in this matchup. I can imagine Deadly Cover-Up. That's the new 5-mana Wrath from Murder at Karlov Manor that you can also collect evidence in order to name a card in your opponent's graveyard and remove all other copies. That's a card that I could see we maybe want, since our opponent is playing so many creatures, but we might want to err away from that. It really kind of depends. And I can also imagine Ertai is probably going to come in here just as a way to kind of fight over some of these things and maybe, kill spell something, kind of get a body on board and become a little bit of a hassle for our opponent. But Besides that, I could maybe see a world where we want negate. It really depends on how you want to structure your deck when it comes to the amount of looters and things you have post-board, because Yang saw those Faerie Masterminds and has to assume there's a minimum of 3, in the opponent's deck, because people very rarely go below 4, and if they do, it's 3 at the max. So
Look, I love this. It looks really cool. I'd love to see it actually pop off and see some of the powerful effects from it. But over on the other side, this Esper Midrange, let's see if we can get that up on the screen, show everybody at home. What do you like bringing out the sideboard here?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that jump out to me that are probably pretty interesting. Disdainful Stroke is the first one, and then Tashani's Tidebinder. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Tidebinder is going to be able to stop any weird trigger type stuff that could happen. You got to see stuff like in the graveyard, like a Tali or a Trax. I think some of them got discarded, so those are coming. Disdainful Stroke is also going to stop things like Reenact the Crime, which I think is a pretty easy assumption to jump to if you think about why am I playing all these looters? That's kind of weird. Besides that, I think that the only other card that I'm super interested in considering is something like Destroy Evil. And the main reason for that is I'm unsure exactly what my opponent's sideboard threats might be. And they might have a bit of a pivot plan, or maybe they stop relying on the graveyard so much, or try to move their deck a little bit. So Destroy Evil could be a card that answers a lot of those different pivoting threats, but also can still just remove the Atraxa or Tali or, the Evidence Creature, the Conspiracy Unraveler if it hits play as well. So those should be the things that I'm kind of looking at if I was Weiss here.
Also, Matthew said he might not even know exactly what's going on the other side of the battlefield. There's a chance we could end up, sideboarding wrong for this matchup, thinking that it's something else, or just going off the cards that we've seen and we haven't actually seen the big finisher yet. Again, one of the huge advantages to bringing kind of a very off-meta deck to a big tournament like this. Both players looks like they're finishing sideboarding. They're just shuffling up. So let's get back down to the match. Well, we've got 30 seconds or so, Mason. Lightning Bolt, talk to me.
So
Lightning Bolt Standard.
Here's the whole thing, and y'all talk about it. Just Doomrake was no immediately, no conversation. And here's the thing: I'm not saying I'm pro putting Lightning Bolt in Standard. I'm just saying if I'm in the design room meeting, right, and someone throws out the idea of what if we put Lightning Bolt into our set, you know what I mean? I would not be oh, that's unrealistic. We could have the conversation about it. That's all I was trying to say in Twitch chat. Is I'm not saying it's easy to slot Lightning Bolt in. It changes the the structure of the entire Standard format. It's a much harder card to bounce around, and there are other ways you could get lots of benefits from having other cool iconic cards get added. I just think Lightning Bolt is a good example of a card that is incredibly iconic and is probably just on the edge of too strong for Standard, but might be in the realm of Standard playable and be allowed to be in the format. And I think it's cool to have iconic strong cards. We've seen players get very excited about Lightning Helix. We've seen players get very excited by No More Lies, which is essentially mana leak with small upside but harder mana to cast, right? So players like when Cavern of Souls, Liliana came back. So I'm a pretty big believer in wanting to get exciting strong cards back into Standard. And I think Lightning Bolt is if it came back in the next 5 years, I would not bat an eye.
What's the what's your benchmark though? What if what's iconic card would you just be hard no without even giving it consideration? Oko?
Oko. I don't even think Oko's. I guess Oko is iconic in some ways. Yeah, Oko's a pretty hard no. That's just unfun in a lot of ways. People not getting to play with their creatures just also warps games way too much. I think that one's a pretty hard no for me. I probably would know the hard no's better than where I would be in my head. I could imagine Brainstorm, for example. That's a card that we could introduce now. That's going to cause problems in other formats, right? But we could deal with that later as the game is starting.
Yeah, we're off to the races. We're just starting off with a couple of land here, though, for both players. Here comes this one of the new Surveil lands. And I feel like everyone's kind of still toying with numbers of these cards. Some decks you only want one of, other decks we want a full suite of them. They can be really good, obviously very good in other formats where fetch lands are available. But in something like Standard, it's... I feel like the jury's still out. It feels like a powerful land, but maybe not as great as everybody thinks they could be. What's your opinion on them?
Yeah, the Surveil lands are interesting because in a lot of ways in Standard, they're a lot like temples. They're just temples you can search off your Boseiju because you don't really, have the fetch lands. Ironically, Yang's deck here is the one that can best use them from what I've seen. Trying to use things like Reenact the Crime, turn 5, play a Surveil land, put a Trax in, cast Reenact the Crime is pretty huge.
Wait till you see Sam's black deck and how good they are in that deck. That's pretty cool. But we're going to see a Faerie Mastermind come down end of turn here. Obviously, I believe it's a ninja that gets made, if I'm not mistaken. Counter from the Kyoto. I think yes, a 1/1 token that can't be blocked. It's ninja because you don't see ninjas coming. The flavor text is on point there. I love to see it. And it was phased out end of turn, so we weren't being able to attack it with the Faerie Mastermind. 4th land drop here for Yang.
You talk about flavor being on point. Kaito there, phasing out, also very cool. And I actually really like this play here of just, we're going to discard with Kaito. Normally you always want to attack and just get your raw draw. But yeah, it looks like we're trying to do something like Reenact the Crime or something like that this turn.
Yeah, not many decks want to be doing that. They want to get that combat damage in early and kind of get the added cards to their hand. But cards in graveyard does play into the game plan of Yang. This 4-mana card, thank you very much, is React the Crime. Spoke about it earlier on. And for 4 mana, we get to play a 7/7 trampling dinosaur with that has... It doesn't have flying. It's the other one. But it does enter the battlefield, which means ETB effect. We're going to mill cards off the top of the deck until we hit spells, and we're going to cast them. And one of them is a Liliana the Veil, which is going to be ticked down. And the other one is the Preacher, which is not bad. Not a bad turn 4, I'd say.
Yeah, and you know what I'm noticing a little bit from looking at Matthew's hand is I think he maybe didn't fully get the joke before. Like you had said, maybe he didn't quite get it because he's like a bunch of kill spells in hand, and it's possible that we just, we kept a couple in to fight over the looters, which makes sense for stopping this combo. We just ended up drawing all of them, but yeah, you see Cut Down and Anoint with Affliction in hand here, so clearly we were trying to fight over the looters to some amount here.
Yeah, don't line up great when there's a 7/7 dinosaur on the other side. Here comes a bat. Let's have a little look at what's going on. There's a Cut Down, a Jace, and the big fly that I can't remember, the Unraveler.
Conspiracy Unraveler.
We're going to take the Cut Down here.
The Conspiracy Unraveler says things like, play boosters were here to get us and things like that, just...
I did my first draft the other day with the new set, and the person feeding me and the person feeding that person all opened the same rare. So I got severely cut off.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it was a War Leader's Crime, really well is cool. The enchantment. It was pretty rough. Anyway, cool. Now we're getting attacked with big 7/7 dinos. We're gonna have Liliana ticking up. We're gonna have Kaito ticking up, adding more cards to hand, kind of refilling the damage that these bats have done. But I'd much rather take dinosaurs over bats in this situation.
Yeah.
And the follow-up is a Rona.
This might be the rare get to the Rona backside, turn into a Phyrexian Obliterator and just attack a lot. But we're kind of seeing, Matthew maybe has some cards that can answer. Oh, that's how you build your collection there. Has some answers that can get there, with the bats and like other spells. But I really think we're kind of, I don't know.
This will help
here. Yeah, it does help.
That means we can just block the dino and get it off the battlefield with the Death Touch from Sheoldred. Is that the Phyrexian art one? As in all the wording's done in Phyrexian? I think it is.
Well, I can tell you on my screen, it might as well be Phyrexian.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's Phyrexian because I can't read any of it.
I know that's Sheoldred's base art, 1 of 10 different arts and ways you can get your Sheoldred.
Hey, this Ronan's flipped into the Obliterator, like you said. So this has got a load of text on it. This is when it's dealt combat damage. You get to use spells from your opponent's hand at random, I believe. I think I shortcut that a little bit, but
I think it's your hand.
Oh, is it your hand?
You may cast it without paying it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Which is even better for Yang. When he's
no, it's whoever does the damage. It's whoever does the damage. Okay, that's how it works. I saw an Aspiring Spike deck where we bolted our own Rona, you see, and then we put in like an Emrakul.
You can't just let lightning bolts go today, can you?
I can't let it go. You're really going to get chat going. Let's talk about what's stronger, lightning bolt or brainstorm, as it does look like Weiss is in the tank here.
Don't. Okay, that's I make disappear off the top. I think the damage has mostly been done at this point, though, so it might not be great, but it might find a target for it. Bats coming across. 2 points of damage is going to be gained. 2 damage is going to be done to Kaito. And a pass of the turn. But we're at 5. Maybe the Alive Tower hasn't updated. Or we're going to be flashing in this Tie Binder for blocking duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe life total hasn't been updated because otherwise this would be a lethal attack. So maybe I think we might be at 7 here on Matthew's side. Yeah, dropping to 2. That makes more sense.
Yep, Bat's getting in there.
Doomwake is going to have some words with you next round in the booth, I believe.
What? That's crazy. It's awkward if we get it. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go -3 and gain 2 life, cast appearing on a venture with Lockwind's Scorn. This card's awesome, by the way. The first time I ever saw it was in a draft. I was like, whoa, this card is amazing in draft. It's not bad in standard either, by the looks of it. It's going to eat some... Was that count? Did we decide not to pay the mana for it?
Well, Make Disappear got casualty, so it had to be 4 mana. We're still having Make Disappears in Weiss's deck. Not no more lives. A good moment for that, The differences do come up,
Would you like this Atraxa that I can't cast, or would you like this blue card that I can cast? Well, it looks like we're going to go for the Atraxa. I guess you don't know that we currently can't cast it in our deck. Let me double check before I say that out loud.
Well,
there isn't any green or white lands, is it? No, the Destiny's no way to hard cast it.
Yeah, I think the idea from Weiss here is that the Conspiracy Unraveler is saying crazy stuff over there, like about play boosters, but also it costs 7 mana, so it's a little bit off. And we just need to not let Atraxa come back if we're going to win. But, the Relentless Reef in play is just going to actually kill us.
Oh, that means that we get to go to a game number 3. But Matthew's going to have a little bit more of an idea of what's going on the other side of the battlefield now, as in the graveyard can be coming back into the battlefield as early as turn number 4, as we saw big old dinosaurs pitting on the battlefield. It was basically Jurassic Park is what we saw there. We saw Jurassic Park happen in real life. But we're going to have another look at the deck list of both these players for everybody at home. So you can also, maybe you want to pick these cards up, bring them to your next event at your local LGS. Obviously, if you're in America, you want to buy those cards from the NRG store because they're going to be fully stocked on all these beautiful cards. Anything we're changing play draw dependent here?
I think it's all the same. I think I'm really curious to know sort of like how many of the kill spells did we actually have? You know what I mean? Because it's possible we just had like 3 or 4, right? Or, total between everything we had. We just had a bunch in our hand. But it seems like we just had a lot of them. And there are some of them that I was a little surprised to still see in the deck. But overall, I think that, probably don't need stuff like Affliction. I kind of get the idea, though, like of exiling versus having some other kill spells. But it's probably better to have the cheaper ones, I would guess, and then have cards like Go for the Throat to actually answer things like Atraxa if they do stick. But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how Weiss wants to position himself in game number 3 now that he's seen how Yang decks work.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's have a flick across to Yang's deck for everybody at home because, this was the first time I've seen this list, and it might be the first time that you at home are also having a look. But it does look crazy fun to me. I feel like this is definitely a deck I would like to, pick up and give it some reps on Arena or something like that. What would do you think? Is anything changing here, play draw dependent, or is it like our deck's going to do our thing and it's on my opponent to stop it?
Yeah, I think Yang is in a position where it's going to be mostly the same. I could see a world where maybe Yang kept in an extra looter instead of having some interactive card in the sideboard because we were on the play and wanted to get on the board early. But honestly, I could see us just presenting the exact same deck list here for Yang. Our deck kind of does what it's trying to do, and maybe there's some kind of sideboarding that happens where we're just moving cards back and forth, so our opponent doesn't know if we're interactive or trying to go for it more. But I think overall, we're going to present a very similar deck that we did for game number 2.
Okay, when it comes to sideboarding, Paper Magic, are you the sort of person that gets out 4 cards from your sideboard, puts them on the table, then takes 4 cards out your main deck and puts them in? Or do you like to shuffle the full 15 in and then take 15 out?
Sometimes, it really depends on how much time we have and everything that's going on and sort of what are we doing, right? A lot of times I'll end up just taking a bunch and slamming them in my deck and then going through and taking out. Sometimes I'm trying to be a little bit more timely about things, for example, if I need to think about the matchup a lot, I'll just grab and put them in because I need to figure out what I need to do anyways, right? Let's say I'm playing against someone like Yang, I maybe haven't played the matchup before. If it's, let's say I'm playing against, you on Mono Red Burn, for example, or Toxic or something like that, and we spent 30 minutes on our first game, I'm going to be much more efficient. I'm just going to quickly, put the cards in front of me and then shove them in my deck and then, finish sideboarding really quick. And if you saw that bringing in 5 cards, oh, well. Not the end of the world.
On the flip side of that, how much notice do you actually take of your opponent and how many cards that they're bringing in during sideboarding?
It depends on how much I have to do, honestly. Once I'm kind of done with my thing, sometimes I'll look over and be like, wow, that's 7 cards in front of them. What's going on? How could you even have 7 cards for me? I'm Esper Midrange. But, For the most part, I would say I don't really notice it most of the time.
Well, both players, I believe we kept opening 7s for both players here. So we're off to the races. We're going to see a bit of land go. But now we're going to see Gix coming down. This card, really good when you have a board presence. Still quite good on its own, but realistically, you're only playing this when your opponent's tapped out. You got a couple of bats on the battlefield, and then you can draw a load of extra cards. Do we have an answer for it here from Yang? Well, Jason's going to do it. I believe the tick up gives it -3, -0.
It does.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're targeting it. You ain't getting no damage in. No extra cards for you.
Yeah, and this is a really great card to kind of have on the battlefield and force Weiss to commit more to the board when he wants to, get something down, right? And then sort of just nickel and dime and holding up interaction the entire time. So having, your card like Gix is actually a really good one to force Yang to put something in the way, run away with the game, but Jace sort of a perfect counter in this spot.
Like, just thinking about it, Jace must also double up because you can also mill yourself, right, to pick the cards that you need in your graveyard to then try and get them back and bet them on the battlefield. That's really cool. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I also imagine Yang gets the draw 3 mode on this Jace a lot just due to all the looting and milling and stuff that we have. So it's probably an all-star in this deck.
Pretty sick indeed. We did use the Phyrexian mana, so that was if you've seen it for the first time, means that you can use 2 life points instead of paying the mana for it. That's why Jace was able to come down on 3, even though it is technically a 4 drop. We're going to start the turn off by ticking up, giving the Gix -3 -0 again. And this is a duress, maybe.
What? Oh, looks like it's Kaito.
Oh, Kaito is coming down. Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting. Yang had cut down in hand. I thought we might be just passing. And then if Weiss taps out or something like that, we might cut down the Gix and just get it off the board since now it is at 0-3. But that might just be a play we're saving for a later turn.
Make Disappear is going to answer the Kaito anyway. It's always nice when your opponent taps out for a spell and you can just cast it, counter it for 2 extra. That's pretty good. That's a nice tempo advantage as Wandering Emperor main phase to be able to put a +1/+1 counter, I imagine, on the Grix. And now it can do combat damage, can draw the card, and start trying to pull away a little bit of card advantage here for Matthew. I don't hate this.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty telling that maybe we're missing something like a land if we're willing to do this in the main phase, because we could have, held up our mana, end of turn, put the counter, lose out on this cycle. But, if Matthew doesn't have much going on, you might as well just, it's better to get going and hope that Yang doesn't have his stuff than give him more time to assemble his, synergies.
Here comes the tick up and the cut down. Love it, because it does have power and toughness combined of 5 after the -3 -0, being a 4/4, dropping down to a 1/4. Okay, it's always nice. It's always nice to answer that with a nice simple 1 mana spell while holding up 3 mana. We did miss our land drop though, so good chance that Yang has a full grip of at least cards. I don't know about castable, but a full grip of cards as we're going to make a samurai. And any follow-ups here? Oh, we're going to animate. We're going to fire up our creature to land. That's going to eat another cut down. Going to go to the bin. We're playing very what's the word? Like heads up here. Like we're just jamming our spells. There's no trying to toy for position here. No end of turn shenanigans. This is what I got. You got answers for it? Great. If you don't, well. Yes, I'm going to be pulling forward a little bit as we see -3 getting cast on the Samurai token. Now that's going to get to go on an adventure.
Yeah, and I kind of like this from Weiss. Earlier, a couple turns ago, we kind of showed, hey, I don't have counter spells, whatever, the way we played. And now we're just kind of we're leaning into that, and we're trying to establish something before we try to get back to posturing. If we don't have anything, it just doesn't matter what we posture or not, because Yang will just take the draw steps.
Yeah, posturing is the best word for that. That's you're just so good with words, Mason. You know that. I don't tell you enough, but you're so good with the old words here. As Yang misses the 5th land drop again. Not ideal. Really looking. That's a Liliana off the top, not a land. And we're going to play it. Make Disappear check. It resolves. Tick down for Liliana. Going to get rid of another Samurai token. Jace is going to tick down, which is going to be mill 3, draw 1. And that's not a land. That's a big 7 mana dinosaur.
It's like a land if you think about it.
I'm thinking really hard.
Because we have a looter in our deck and we'll discard it and we'll keep a land.
See, I was thinking one step ahead. You're thinking 3 steps ahead.
You're lacking vision, is what I'm hearing.
That's why you're the coach. You see, that's
right.
why Mason the coach Clark, and I'm just Will the experience.
You're like Doug Diggumdale right now with that mustache, my man. You know, you ever see Fairly Odd Parents?
I have not. I have no idea who that is. But,
you should look up Doug Diggumdale.
All right, I'm on it. Hold on a minute. Doug. Am I going to be insulted by this?
No, he was a very cool character. He had a big mustache like you did.
Okay.
Doug Dimmadone. Excuse me. I misremembered it. Twitch chat knows who it is.
Sure. Cue all the memes and tags in Twitter I'm going to get from that now. Thank you very much, Mason.
Happy to help. You know, we have like almost 2,000 people watching today. We want to make sure to click that follow button. That way they don't miss any of the other action. And make sure to tweet at WillHallEXP with your favorite Doug Dimmadone meme.
I've never even heard of him before. What's he famous for?
He owns the Dimmadome.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's like a place in the Fairly Odd Parents show. We can talk about it between games if you want. But right now, we're passing back and forth.
Hey, we hit the first land drop. There you go. We're back in it. We're going. Kaito for the turn. And it looks like it's resolving. We're going to tick it down, make a token, which means it's going to be phasing out end of turn. So we will be able to get to use it again next turn. We're going to tick up this Liliana, which means we're both going to have to discard. And that Dino is going to go to the graveyard and a land for Matthew. Then we're going to tick up Jace, give the Cave Bat -3/-0, which means it is currently a -2/1. So probably won't be turning that sideways anytime soon. Cut Down is going to deal with the 1/1 ninja token. And then Matthew's going to untap for turn and draw. I think the Wandering Emperor was ticked up. Yeah, we're going to decide where we're putting this +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, Matthew knows he wants the counter. I imagine, you push on the Samurai. That way you dodge Cut Down going forward and force the hand of Yang.
That's going to get Liliana off the battlefield. I believe Matthew's just got a bunch of removal in hand, right? And not even like good removal.
Yeah, I think we have like Anoint with Affliction Friend still in hand.
We're going to draw a card. We're going to discard a card. I think it was a land drawn. Might have a Multiverse in hand. Atrax is going to go to the graveyard. And this did come in out the sideboard, as you said. This is the new Raff spell, Deadly Cover-Up, which does have a bit of extra text on it. So additional to the cost of this spell, you may collect evidence 6. Destroy all creatures. If evidence was collected, exile a card from an opponent's graveyard, then search its owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of the named card and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. And it looks like are we going for Bat here?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to take the Deep-Cavern Bat, just so that way we put Cruelty of Gix in our hand. I think the idea is next turn we're going to put Atrax into play if we don't see any counter spells, and there weren't any real counter spells we wanted to take from the graveyard, if any. I actually don't think we've shown one this game.
Pretty cool. And you also get to have a good look at the deck list of your opponent, because this is not an open deck list tournament yet. They've got to wait to the top 8 for that. So it is closed deck list, and Yang using that fully to the advantage. With this just apps, I'm going to keep calling it an off-meta deck. Maybe because of my ignorance, I haven't seen it before, but I think this is a real cool deck moving forward. Win or lose in this matchup.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely something to this deck, and we're seeing a lot of refinement too. I saw some of this deck like maybe 2 weeks ago, and it did not have as much of a good mixture of like removal and other planeswalkers that play like a good mixture game, right? Like Kaito is a great thing to have in your deck to kind of like play a fair-ish game with all your removal, but also set up your combo. You play it on 3, you're going to have it on turn 4 thanks to the phase out. Almost always that sets up the Reenact the Crime. That kind of stuff is really smart innovation I love to see. So
we're going to use the tick up from Kaito. We haven't attacked, so it will be a draw, a discard. We're going to hit a land. It's one of the new Surveil ones. We're going to surveil another land to the graveyard, and then the follow-up is going to be the is it Celtius or something like that is called?
The Celestus,
which now brings in the day-night token. Great mechanic to follow on camera.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's daytime right now.
It is not in the UK. It is definitely nighttime here in the UK. We're getting close to 10 o'clock at night. Let's how are we going to move forward? We're seeing one thing I'm noticing is this Jace has been on the battlefield, which seems forever, and so does this Wandering Emperor. Here comes a nice hit. Here is a big spicy Phyrex. She's not the Phyrexian general, is she? That's the track. So what's Sheoldred? Sheoldred's the Phyrexian law check.
She was the Gladiator Arena. She tried to become the general, and then Ellerstorm beheaded her. Thus the card in all but one where Sheoldred's head is like falling off or whatever. So
I knew you'd know the lore to it. I was like, I know it tracks the general. I can't remember which Sheoldred was, but
it was actually the final test when they were like working on MH3. They're like, "Do you know the lore?" And then I was just like, obviously, So
are you going to give any of us spoilers on what's in MH3 this week?
No.
I think every time I speak to you, I'm always asking about it.
And then every time I'm like, I can't talk to you about it until the time comes.
I can't wait. I literally cannot wait till it gets printed. I'm just going to be tweeting at you going, what the is this card, Nathan?
You're going to tweet Doug Dimmadome keeps messaging me about cards.
Okay, right. Here it comes. Besiege the Multiverse. So this is it target opponent or both players? It's both players, isn't it?
I think it's every player. For Commander.
Let's not mention that here. Come on, this is a competitive Magic tournament, where both players are basically going to mill 10, and we get to pit a permanent from both, or no, a creature or planeswalker from both piles onto the battlefield. And there's a bit of glare, but let's have a little look at what we've got option wise.
Yeah, it looks like we've got at least a Virtue and a Takanuma as some of the options. It looks like we've chosen some other cards. It's probably like a Cruelty of Gix and an Otawara.
Is that an Atraxa now on the battlefield?
Yep, Atraxa hit the battlefield from the breach.
Oh, that's okay. I got you.
We're resolving the breaches. The Atraxa's trigger there.
Got you. That's it. I was looking at the Beseech when that was happening. That's why. But now we're going to get a little ninja token. Tick up the Jace, making that Samurai 0-3. Well, you're going to have to give a good answer to this, Matthew. And I'm looking at your deck list, and I'm not sure you do. Unless maybe the Gix commands came in?
Yeah, I think this is a situation where Matthew, tried to play the tempo role and, gets himself on board and control things, but Yang did too good a job of managing the threats. With Matthew missing his turn 2 and then turn 3 playing the Gix, this lined up too perfectly with honestly almost in removal from Yang's deck and the Jace, and just the Jace basically never left the battlefield at that point.
Well, there's the answer to the Atraxa, but obviously Atraxa, once she hits the battlefield, damage is kind of done when you get to refill your hand with loads of different card types. Still day. Good to see that's keeping up on the battlefield. The amount of times that I've seen judge calls because the day, the night, and the night is flipped, and we have to go back and forth with it. Here comes the powerful free drop. Have we seen that cast this game at all yet? The Seer. I don't think we've seen one so far this game. This is going to be the first of it in game number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have wanted that a little bit sooner from Matthew, because we could start cycling away some of these bad cards in my hand, shall I say. Removal spells that don't really hit anything, and as redundant lands. There's the attack. Get the extra trigger.
It's a 1/4 next to Jace, so just bumps heads with the Ertai.
And we're in the how many cards do you have left in your deck part of the game? How many Beseeches can I cast before I mill you out?
Unironically. I kind of wish Yang had double block there and just finished off the Samurai so it wasn't a problem anymore, but maybe we have bigger plans with the Ninja.
Gonna have a little cat of our own deck list. I think we've probably got less cards in Yang's deck. Could be wrong on that though.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The black sleeves are really hard for me to count. I'm actually pretty good, I think, at counting when the players do it, but the black sleeves are just too tough.
I think we've got an Unraveler in hand that we're looking to cast, and then we can start casting multiple Beseeches from the graveyard or from... Is it from... Can we cast them from anywhere, or is it got to be from hand?
It's from hand, I think.
From hand, okay.
Yeah, so I think what's happened is we milled the Jace for 15, and now we're going to reenact the crime to get back the Jace by collecting evidence, and then we're going to mill you again for 15. So that's 30 cards. And that should probably put us,
That's sick. That's a really cool way to finish that game off. You know, we're looking at the life totals. Yang's on a different level, looking at how many cards you got. I'm going to just mill you out and win in standard that way. Really cool victory there, advancing now to a 5-1 record. So, you know, hats up, congratulations. We do have our backup feature match still going. So let's move straight down to that, producer. Let's just get down. Let's get the most magic we can on screen. We've got Sam versus Cliff, and now, when we're talking about these surveilled lands and how good they can be, well, let me introduce you to a lovely little card that Sam's got in his list, which is called Insidious Roots, Mason.
Yeah, Insidious Roots is a very fun and exciting build-around card.
Very, really. Obviously, I'm a Yawgmoth player. I thought this card was pretty cool when I saw it played. But now, after I've seen it in standard and how it can go off in literally just one turn, you can just end the turn with multiple, almost like 20 power on the battlefield. It's crazy. Maybe we'll get to see it here from Sam. Is down a game, though, going in this game number 2. Here comes the Surveil land. I'm going to put the extra land into the graveyard. And I think we saw Sam, I think it was round 1. But since then, bounced back and picks up 4 wins in a row. So really, hoping to get into that top 8 a week before MagicCon Chicago and the Pro Tour. It'd be pretty good, for morale to go into that weekend on a winning record, as we see Takanama mill 3 cards. Do we want to put any of these in, or any creature or planeswalker from our graveyard into our hand? Sam says, yes, I do.
Yeah, one of the cards, Sam has a lot of very cool and exciting cards in this deck that work well together, but Faerie Dream Thief is one of the cards I think has been, weirdly not great yet in standard, but is obviously such a powerful card. And this deck is one of the better Faerie Dream Thief decks I have seen.
It like when you look at it, there was so many little dawdly 1/1s in this deck, but together they actually have they combine to do one huge task. And Sam's he's a master at these sort of decks, right? Loves making tokens, loves these crazy little synergy decks, and we're going to see Rabble Belt Maverick. If you told me that this was going to see play in standard, I would have said get out of it. You're wrong, Mason. But what would I know? As it is a 1-drop with an ETB of Surveil 2, and then has the extra text of exiling it from the graveyard, adding a counter, and that with roots on the battlefield. Well, then we'll start rocking and rolling.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting to me from thinking about the cards and almost a design standpoint, it's 1-drops are very strong just because you can play them early, whatever. And we've been seeing a lot of 1-drops that kind of have half a card of value on them, right? Faerie Dream Thief, you get the Surveil, and then in her case, you can spend some mana, exile it, draw a card, right? This Rebel Belt Maverick here has ETBs, and you Surveil as well, right? And then you can do some graveyardy stuff. There's just a lot of cards like that in Sam's deck. The Snarling Gorehound as well, and there's just a lot of 1-drops that have this small and sentimental value. And Lunarch Veteran here is another great example. It's a Saravinge or whatever it's called, and then gains life, comes back. There's just a lot of stuff like that, and I'm really interested to see when does it break? We got to have a critical mass of these 1-drops that have incidental value that eventually become something like what Sam's doing here today. Now, maybe it's not this deck, but it's very interesting to see it.
I think that might be a Cosmic Rebirth for Sam. So one thing about this Roots deck is it doesn't do much unless it has Roots in play. And looking at Cliff's hand, we've got 2 Get Lost and a March in hand. And the fact that we're just firing this March off anyway on probably not one of the more powerful cards, but the Case of the Uneaten Feast shows a little bit of power in how strong the hand is.
Yeah, I think Sam was actually about to solve the case is what happened.
What
I might be wrong.
Do much?
It lets you cast all the creatures from your graveyard.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's actually pretty good. That's
yeah.
That's pretty good. If that one, yeah. I understand why that's got a rare symbol next to it now. That's pretty good in this deck.
Yeah, Case of the Uneaten Feast is a card I think people I don't know. It is definitely a Johnny's welcome a lot of the time, right? You just gain some life, but when it works and you assemble a lot of things with it, it is very powerful.
So it looks like we've gone 2 turns, and this is turn 1. Here comes a Roots for Sam off the top. That's going to be huge to be able to kind of build a little bit of presence, potentially not to lose the game, but we could end up going to a draw here. which is not ideal for both, but I don't think it will knock them out of top 8 contention yet. They'll need some tiebreakers to go their way, but we've got a little bit of magic to go before then, so let's not worry about it too much. As Get Lost is on the stack, and it is going to take out that route, put it into the graveyard. 2 map tokens coming along. Love the new art for these map tokens, by the way.
They're very exciting. I wonder if it's possible that Cliff can win the game in turns by ultimating the Jace, like kind of what we saw last round, right? Well, or the match, excuse me, like minus this Jace for like 21, minus the next Jace for like, 15, and just hope that Sam's done enough incidental stuff. It doesn't seem that way from, like the graveyard doesn't look that big, but at least that's the way that Cliff can maybe win the game.
That is an out. And it'd be pretty cool if we saw both games come to get concluded by Jace ticking down and just milling out our opponent. But we're moving forward. This is the dice is gone, but I think it'd be extra turn number 2.
Yeah, it's also possible these players maybe have an extension or something.
Okay. Yeah, you say that what production.
Yeah. So production let us know the die is actually reminding us which creature is getting minus by Jace. So while we normally use the screen dice here on coverage for letting us know when we're in turn, they're not quite in turns yet. We have a little bit of time left to go.
That makes a lot more sense, and that's also good for everybody watching at home, because we don't want to see games concluded by that. We want to see a clear winner, as map token is going to get cracked. It's going to reveal a land that's going to go to hand. Crack again. What's on top? Sarah's Emissary. That's not a bad one.
Yeah, that card is very good at if the game is about grinding.
So not Emissary, it's a Paragon, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I wasn't going to throw it into the bus like that.
No, always throw it into the bus. And there's a handshake. What did we miss for that?
So what happened is Sam popped the thing, attacked the Jace. We flashed in the Wandering Emperor. We minus, and Sam just conceded. He's like, listen, you got 5 cards in hand. The Jace is probably a turn away from ultimating. I know I have nothing in my deck that can kill that Jace. I'm going to pick it up. Let's have a little bit more time in our life.
So it was going to be another Jace ultimate basically to win it out. Sweet. Well, on that one, we've got no more magic for you, but we do have some future events here and in the NRG. If you're inspired to come and take part in one of these events, so next time you're going to see the NRG go live is going to be in April 20th, 21st. That's going to be in Minneapolis. And on Saturday, it is going to have a 10K modern showdown. On the Sunday, well, that's a 5K trial, and that format is going to be Legacy. Where are they going next, Mason?
Yeah, and then after that, we're going May in Indianapolis for Modern, and then Teams Trios. After that, those are both 10K. Those are both showdowns as well, Will. So if we show up and win either of those events, you will make our end-of-the-year championship series event $30,000, invite to the Pro Tour, and so much more on the line there. And then after that, Will, where are we rounding out this little quarter?
Well, it's going to be in St. Louis, which is going to, on the Saturday, have a 10K Pioneer. And on the Sunday, well, it's going to be a 5K trial, which will be Modern. That's going to be happening over the weekend of June 22nd and 23rd. And Mason, I have Will Hall facts. I don't know if you know about these, but every location we go to, I have a little Google about what's in the area for people going into it. And I think I've got one left for St. Louis that I haven't said so far. The Arch, which apparently is in St. Louis, it's a nice big monument, is the tallest man-made monument in the United States. And now you know. You're welcome. On that one, I'm not saying they're interesting facts. I'm just saying I've got facts. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But we're going to move back to the booth, as that is going to be the end of round number 6. That is going to be the end of me. I'm going. I've got to go drive back to camp and have a real job and stuff. Would be boring, but I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Mason and Doom. They're going to be taking you through not only the last couple rounds of the Swiss, but the top 8 as well. So for me, I want to say thank you, chat. You've all been amazing. Thank you very much, Doom. I know you're out there having your dinner right now, but thank you very much for carrying me all today. And Mason, appreciate this round. Always a pleasure to work with you, my friend. And I hope you kill it in the top 8. I'll be trying to listen while I'm driving. So have a good one, chat. Stick around because we'll be having more magic real shortly.